Oh, come on now. You didn't think that the U.S. wouldn't capitalize on a health crisis for political purposes, did you? God, I'm sick of fucking virus videos. Quick recap. The media response to the virus has been thus.
The flu is worse. Trump is racist and overreacting for restricting Chinese flights.
3 weeks later.
This is the worst virus of all time. Trump didn't do enough. Trump recommended chloroquine. Chloroquine is bad.
12 seconds later.
Chloroquine is working because Trump's trying to make money off of it. Time for a second impeachment. Trump knew about the virus in November before the Chinese did.
Now, claim 6 is not even sourced. No surprise coming from ABC. So, starting with claim number 3. Besides the fact that Johns Hopkins found the U.S. was the best prepared country for the virus, there is a fundamental misunderstanding about what the role is of the states versus the role of the president. The governors are in charge of running their states, maintaining their health supplies. The president is not really supposed to be too involved other than to be a voice of hope, signing bills coming from Congress for funding of cures or financial aid. Wilson, Roosevelt, Kennedy, and Reagan all stand as precedents for this for Democrat or Republican presidents during a health crisis. Now, Trump still failed completely in the beginning by trusting data from the CCP butt-sucking WHO, but based on said precedent, Trump is technically doing more than usual by holding press briefings every day with medical advisors at his side, and even California said he's doing a good job. He technically earns the compliment by getting rid of arguably murderous federal regulations that were restricting businesses from mass-producing the fastest virus tests in the world, from restricting doctors from video chatting with patients instead of overwhelming hospitals, restricted patients from getting treated with chloroquine, and restricted states from hiring out-of-state physicians, amongst other things. It's thanks to the unleashed private sector that the predicted deaths in the U.S. has been more than halved. Now, the current Democratic governors, however, seem to be under the impression that the federal government will just hold their hand the entire time, completely ignoring the fact that the governments are state leaders. But they go a step further and literally threaten doctors and pharmacists who would give out chloroquine as a treatment, despite the claims of success from Korea, Belgium, France, even California, because they hate Trump. Addressing claim 4, they've even tricked people into believing that the drug will kill you, since some retard drank fish cleaner that includes a chemical with a similar name. So then there were a ton of articles saying, well, there's no evidence that chloroquine works. In fact, it's dangerous, ignoring all of the evidence that it could work. So now people are less likely to be treated properly if they get infected, since they are programmed to hate anything Trump does. It's actually quite hard to believe that this article is, in fact, satirical. A top hospital executive said Trump supporters should give up their ventilators for other people, and one of the governors who were threatening doctors and pharmacists giving out chloroquine eventually started to beg for the drug. So it sounds like Democrats want more people to die to make Trump look bad? Or no, that couldn't be.
Would you go for this deal that the coronavirus lasts longer and is more severe, but the president guarantees to lose the election?
Sure.
Yeah.
I would.
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep.
Frankly, yes.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a number where you say, okay, I wouldn't make that deal, like 1 million deaths?
I would still make that deal.
Still make the deal.
Yep.
Is there a number of coronavirus deaths where you would say, I would change my position?
No.
No, same with you?
Absolutely not.
As for claim number 5, the New York Times once again is caught reporting fake news. Trump does not own stock in chloroquine. He owns a small stake in a mutual fund that at one time put around $100 in a company that happened to manufacture chloroquine amongst many other drugs. So yeah, Trump could potentially make hundreds of dollars. Meanwhile, the government in New York, who sold all their emergency ventilator stockpile, he steals ventilators from other hospitals in the state to use in New York City, except he just makes another stockpile instead he uses them. But the Democrats want him to be president now. Yeah, yet another reason that Americans hate New Yorkers, I guess. So probably the stupidest news out of all of this is that the U.S. has become the anti-China. Anyone who's not a communist sympathizer knows that the Chinese virus statistics are off by at least 1 or 2 decimal points, especially considering that the several funeral homes in Wuhan alone have given out around 200,000 urns, some of which are even combined with ashes from other people. Also, people are already passing out again after Wuhan reopened. The U.S., on the other hand, is trying to make the virus situation look worse than it is. How?
We've taken a very liberal approach to mortality.
Ohio just admitted to counting people who are only suspected of infection. Louisiana has a baby born 22 weeks early, tested negative for the virus, but was counted as a virus death. New York is counting anyone with the virus who happens to die as a virus death. and labeling people with certain systems as infected without testing them. So now we have these memes where a guy dies from jumping out of a plane with no parachute, which must be a virus death. So the correct way to do this is not taking a liberal approach, but determining if complications by the virus led to the death, despite the other issues. But hey, who cares? Because the CDC now tells hospitals just to call it a virus death, even if you're just assuming. So does that mean that there's a sudden drop in positive influenza test results because they're just assuming that it's the Wu flu? Well, why? The more Wu flu patients a hospital has, the more federal funding they get from the stimulus. And this $2 trillion stimulus is actually destroying the U.S. economy, since it also bails out corporations, including airlines, even though they spent all their money on stocks. The stimulus includes basically whatever the fuck they want, including climate change subsidies, money for making a diversity committee, and more free money for illegal immigrants. Meanwhile, the head of the House of Representatives said it's small businesses that don't need any financial aid. Well, the cure is officially worse than the disease, so what's next?
Now we need to go and look in families to find those people who may be sick and remove them.
Well, that's a good way to get a hole in your face.